Hello, I'm James Siddons. I have a time capsule I want to share with you in this duffel bag. It is full of printed music that I bought in Oxford, England in December of 1970. The music has been put in this bag and has been left here for 50 years. It is now January of 2021. And I was in Blackwell's music shop in Oxford and just looking at music, and here was a display table full of music from 30 years before, 50, 100 years before, some of it popular, some of it classic. And I was noticing the prices on it. They weren't much. I said, what to a salesman, what if I bought the whole table full? And he said, well, we could sell it to you for 12 pounds. I said, can you send it to me back in America? I want it sent to Texas, and they said, sure. So I bought it all and gave them the address. I was then a student at the University of London, could not have accommodated so much music in my digs, as the British students would call their rooms, and so I had it sent, and there it was waiting for me. But when I got back, I decided to save it for a while. I was busy. I later studied in Japan a couple of years, so the bag laid around. I got the idea of the time capsule and just let it sit now for 50 years. Today we're going to open it and see what this music treasure of a half century ago, music even older than that, has to show us today that we might be interested in. So I want to first just point out there are some tags here that are still here, and you can see where I bought it at Blackwell's. This is their export department, and they sent it to me in Texas. Here's another tag about that, and this is the stamp where it passed customs in New York for free. And the hemp rope, the lead clasping seals, all very antique looking, though not so much long ago. Some metal D-rings to tie it together with, very thick canvas, and it's getting old and dried, so why don't we now get out some scissors. I have them right here, and we're going to open this bag and see what's in the time capsule. Now that we're up on the tabletop here, I'm going to snip these bands that have kept this box tied up all these years, and pull this, and inside is yet more cardboard, folks. Let's see what's underneath all of this. Now we've arrived at what all the excitement's about, and some interesting British music, and I'll just show you what's here as I pull it up. And first thing on top, what could be more appropriate than Henry Purcell, one of the great English composers, in Guilty Night, published by Novello. The price is 1 shilling 6 pence. This was published by Novellos in 1959. Here is a storybook and what looks to be Welsh, not musical. The Journal of Oriental Studies, July 1954, Far Eastern Bibliography. I was not expecting that. Something of Brahms, his duets. These are very well known. And here's some apparent sheet music or copy of a handwritten score. It's a cantata by Bach, and this is the oboe part. Well, I'm going to start putting these things down front here and let you get a little better view of them. The Cambridge Hymnal. Notice that, like old hymnals, it is the poetry only. There is no music. Something of Aaron Copland's has made its way to Oxford. This is for solo and 8-part choir. A Fugue in E minor by Schubert has been folded up rather ingloriously. I'll put that there. The famous 48 Preludes and Fugues of Bach in the Donald Francis Tovey edition. Mendelssohn's Songs Without Words in an English edition. An arrangement by Ernest Heywood of a serenade, Schubert and Liszt. This was published by Oxford University Press. This is a little bit battered, but it looks usable. Amherst Weber. I do not know this composer. 10 Melodies for Voice and Piano. Price 5 shillings. Published by Recordian London in 1899. I'll put that down there. The Royal Koisa Music Opera Company, the libretto of Carmen. Some very strange adaptation of music by Bach called Oh Yes, Just So. I'm not sure what that's about. It's from the cantata Phoebus and Pan, not one of his major works, but an interesting idea. And it used to be 2 shillings. They had raised it to 2 shillings and 6. Oh yes, Johnny West is the one who concocted this in 1912. Now this will be quite interesting. We have a recitative in air, O Ravishing Delight, by Thomas Arne, who's one of those composers that's in all the music history books, but you think you never hear any of his music. 18th century composer. But notice down here, this music has been arranged by William Cummings. He indeed is a very fascinating character. He lived in the 19th century, was a choral arranger and singer. He was in a choir as a young boy that was actually conducted by Mendelssohn when Mendelssohn was in England. He continued to collect music, old and new, printed manuscript. He was quite a collector. And when he died, his estate sold the music out, and a large chunk of it was bought by a Japanese investor and taken to Tokyo, where it still remains today in a private library. Cummings is the one who liked Mendelssohn so well, he took one of his melodies and added some words by Charles Wesley, Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Some interesting work there by William Cummings. Here's another copy of the same. Now, Joseph Williams in Portland Street, I do not know this publisher. This is a setting of some music by Bach. I'm looking for a date and finding nothing, but it does look 19th century in several ways. I'll hold this up so you can see the typeface at the top. This item is interesting. It's published by the Plain Chant Publication Committee, which was very well known 100 years ago in England. This is a 1936 edition. It was an attempt to recreate the singing of monophonic medieval chant in the modern church. And this is for a Eucharistic intonations. These editions were very beautiful. Let me open this and show what this beautiful intonation chant was looking like. It's in large size, easily seen. from a distance by someone singing at an altar, a communion table, perhaps. Oh, let me show you the back page too. Where there was instructions for how to sing these intonations. A very beautiful book. Here we have some interesting works: Bach, Schubert, Mozart, and you'll find that the covers are interesting, the arrangements, the editors are very interesting too. Now here's an interesting group of early 20th century British composers, and are composers well known in Britain, and I find I'd like to just show you these covers and the composers one by one. Here is Hans Pfitzner, Opus 11. Sheep May Safely Graze, and of course that's by Bach, but here we have arranged for 2 solo violins and strings by Reginald Jacques, Oxford University Press, and published in New York by Carl Fischer too. Here's some more arias of Bach, and this was published by Joseph Williams Limited in London. Here's a similar one. Constance Lambert is a name that pops up in American history books as an important name in British music of 100 years ago. The heroic evening song, O Bad Heroique, and a small orchestra plays that, 7 shillings 6 pence, from Oxford University Press. Hilaire Belloc was here's a song about the birds. Peter Warlock was an early 20th century composer who has many fine songs to his name. Matthias Seiber, also a teacher, and he taught a number of British composers of the mid-20th century. Here's some songs on Goethe's Faust. Interesting story about his demise: he was on a safari in Africa and died in a traffic accident. I'll just let you enjoy this one all you want. Anton Dvorak is a composer, but this setting was published in Britain. The song cycle, The Birth of Jesus by John Lambert, a J.W. Chester publication. Humphrey Searle wrote a number of books of British music history, including the contemporary composers of his time. Here is his Opus 10 Ballade, a piano solo, sold for 3 shillings 100 years ago. William Bush, another composer lost in British history, a piano solo. Phyllis Tate was later on rather widely respected as a composer. Here are 2 songs, The Falcon and the Cock. Oxford University Press put that out. A Svensson, I do not know this composer's biography, but a lovely 19th century title. This was published in London by Augener. I do not see a date. A copy of Matthias Seiber's Faust songs. And then Sebastian Brown, a canonic settings of Dona Nobis, Psalm 115, verse 1. Interesting set of British composers. I have here some interesting early editions of British music, and these have interesting covers and interesting stories behind them in some cases. I first want to show you this cover of some bird songs. And the poet is simply identified as A.S., but the composer is Liza Lehmann. The birds are the starling, the wren, the owl, and so forth. An interesting drawing. On the inside, at the beginning of one of the songs, is her autograph. Next, look at this really fascinating, somewhat Art Deco 1930s looking cover, an Oxford University Press by Bernard Dettern. Cyril Scott, well known in England as well as America, an organ work, and the editor's A. Eaglefield Hull. You will read about him anytime you read about England around 1900. I got a blank page here of Lullaby, music by Frederick Keel. Something published in London by Chant, Arnold Trowell. This piece of music is quite large. It says, first time of publication, the Largo Concertamento with sentiment, violin, piano by Paganini. What a tremendous statement that music makes. The interest in this one is in the small print. One of Bach's arias, nothing unusual about arranging that. It's only in the small print right there where you see that the arranger's J.A. Westrup. Jack A. Westrup was an Oxford professor, editor of the magazine Music and Letters for many years. And another minor composer, York Bowen, a partita, and it's in the Baroque suite setting. Well, here's a few librettos I want to show you, and then some music scores. These librettos, famous, not so famous. Here is Merry England, a comic opera, and composed by Edward German, words by Basil Hood. If anybody's heard of him, I appreciate you letting me know, but that one is pretty much lost to history, I think. On the other hand, Tannhäuser is in every textbook. Not to mention The Mikado by Gilbert and Sullivan. This is an edition from, if I can find it here, 1911, or shortly thereafter. But take a look at this cover. Hans von Bühlow's edition. There's some Bach and Handel in this, but the use of the red, the shading, in this fantastic edition is quite remarkable. Let me look down at the bottom and see if I can find the date of this. Now, sorry to say, is an interesting preface, a forward that has not much of information, but it does not date it. Finally, over here, Norman Fulton has 3 songs and a Nat Lee from the 17th century with his music has been set by Thomas Dunhill, a Kerwin publication. There's quite a bit of arrangements and parts for European composers of the classic and Baroque era, and these are often just imported to England. And I'm looking primarily for English composers. Let me finish up with a few here. John Ireland, this is his London pieces, and that's a very nice piano work. Here is Percy Grainger, and he's well known for a few tunes written. British folk music settings for piano. And then finally I found a few things which cannot have been too old in 1970. The first 2 were published in 1967, but they hint at other things going on in England in the 1960s. Excerpt from a teenage opera by Grocer Jack, or named Grocer Jack, and Phil and Keith Hopkins did that. I'll open it up and let you see it. And that's what it looks like right there. And down at the bottom it says 1967. Here's a pop group. I don't know if anyone's heard of the Scaffolds. They had a song called Thank You Very Much in 1967. The songwriter was Michael McGear. And then finally, a little bit of educational music. Melody and Rhythm series by Yvonne Adair, published by Novello. Folk songs and dances. Arranged in this manner. But where would we be without the great amount of activity in British, Scottish, Celtic, Irish folk music today? And there was a very serious interest in it in this publication from the 1960s. Well, there's much more here, but it's all from European sources. The great composers are well represented here. Interesting things such as four-hand piano or two piano four-hand arrangements of opera overtures and so forth. Just a fascinating view of the world of British music 100 years ago. Thank you for watching my video.